Okay. It's 6 p.m. It's May the 9th, 2023. This is the Franklin Board of Public Works meeting, calling the meeting to order. We'll do a quick roll call. Myself, Chairman Webster, Alderman Hassan, is that correct?
Yes.
Alderman Hassan.
Here.
Commissioner Woznicki.
Here.
Commissioner Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Specht.
Here.
Commissioner Witt.
Here.
City Engineer Morrow.
Here.
Assistant City Engineer Beinlich.
Here.
And Highway Superintendent Schleider.
Here.
Okay. We will do a quick pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. We're going to do the public comment period first. And Alderman Hassan, it's Yusuf Hassan?
Yes.
Would you like to take a moment and introduce yourselves to the members of the board, or maybe everybody on the board can give you a little bit of, maybe that's the best thing to do. Can we just go down the board first off, and then that way you can kind of be introduced. I'm John Webster. I've been on this board probably longer than, Earth. I don't know, like 91 was when I became a member of this board. And lived in this city since about 1990. So, and I kind of remember things that sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. Although I think my memory comes up pretty good with comments about stuff that was done years ago. So go ahead.
Okay, my name's Chuck Porter. I've been on the board probably 10 years or so. And I'm a longtime Franklin resident going back to about 1977. So, live over on North Cape Road. So.
Okay.
Dave Woznicki, been on the board a few years now. Been in Franklin probably, it was about 2008.
Okay. Okay. Becky or Jim?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Jim Witt, I've been on board about a year. I lived in Franklin for more than 60 years.
Nice to meet you.
Becky Specht, been on the board for a couple of years plus one. Lived in Franklin for 13 years now.
Okay. So you'll find most of us on the board are either engineers or we work in general industries. Some of us have been either members of or worked within this public works department or other public works departments. Others would work. Becky and David work in the for MMSD, I believe.
Correct.
And then so we come from a pretty broad cross section of private and public. And all of us have some engineering or technical background of some form that we bring.
It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Yusuf Hassan. I moved to Franklin in 2006. I am a retired pharmacist. I practiced pharmacy for over 40 years. And I have two of my children who are Franklin High School alumni. And two other are Marquette University alumni. And four more from UW Milwaukee alumni. So since I was planning to retire this year, I wanted to really do something for the community. Since we lived in Franklin, we've been really very happy in the city of Franklin for the past 16, 17 years. And I thought, do something nice for the city of Franklin. So I joined the aldermanship, and I became an alderman just this past April.
Congratulations.
Well,
Thank you.
congratulations and
Thank you.
welcome. And you'll find that we run a pretty open meeting. I allow people to speak when it's their items are on the agenda. It's not like a council meeting. We're a little bit more open, a little bit there. You know, we'll work through it, and I'm sure you'll catch up to speed with how we operate, and so that's fine. I did forget to do the approval of the minutes for the April 11th meeting that are included in our packets. I've read through them. I didn't see anything to modify from what I read. Is there a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion to approve as presented by Commissioner Woznicki, seconded by Commissioner Porter. All of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, that will pass. Now, I'm going to go back to the public comment period for just for a minute. As you all know, if you're on the agenda, we'll let you speak. If you have any other comments to bring up to the board about options, things that you want us to look at, now's the time to do so. Okay, 6:07, and we'll declare that closed, and we'll move on. I believe that you would be here for the acquisition of the Patricia Court and Susanna Court, correct? So why don't we come up, we'll take you out of order, and we're going to go to item 4B. Okay, and I apologize, I do not remember your name. So if you would please restate your name for our record. And then, Glenn, you want to start this off? We have in our packet information from the engineering department. There's information in there that has come. I see you went out and talked to the previous city engineers and got their inputs and et cetera. We did. And so you have some information from all of those individuals. So you want to fill us in on where you're at?
We did. We had lunch with Jack and Ron and had a good conversation about this. So I'm going to actually have Tyler give all the details. He kind of summarized the televising and actually put the memo together, but I'll add to anything that Tyler doesn't mention.
Sure. So to recap, the last time we talked about this was the March meeting. So the two roads, do you want to pull them up on there just in case? Susanna Court and Patricia Court. So just to kind of recap, so when we went out previously and we took a look at the roads, we would rate them about a 4 or a 5 out of 10 on our typical pavement rating scale. They were constructed between 2005 and 2007. Based on the plans and kind of everything that's built out there, it appears to have been built to our specifications, but we don't have any inspection records for those two roads because they were private and are private. The water and sanitary utilities, they run in the roadway, but they're in a utility easement. And then we did a little research and kind of digging through our records. The storm sewer that runs in the streets and to the retention ponds, it's all private. So nothing in the roadway is public aside from the water and sanitary. As Glenn noted, we met with Jack and Ron, the former city engineer and assistant city engineer. Neither of them, after thinking about it, recalled the city ever taking over any private roads. Jack mentioned a few times that it had come up, but for several reasons, some of which are listed here, the city elected not to take them over. So some of the major reasons were we don't have the construction inspection record, so we don't know for sure that it was built to our specifications, especially in this case because there really is no possibility to extend them. They really offer no benefit to the rest of the taxpaying citizens to take those over. And then just in general, added city DPW staff time to plow and maintain the roads. And then one of the other ones was a concern of setting a precedent for future developers to try and kind of skirt around our requirements or any planning requirements, and then years down the road try to hand over the roads. So some of the other concerns were just and it's more of a planning department issue, but the proximity of the structures to the actual roadway, it's not enough to fit actual right-of-way and meet our setback requirements. Some of the street trees are a little close, and then we also had the utility department do some televising of the storm sewer, and there's a little bit of a summary in the packet. There really wasn't any major imminent issues or anything. I mean, I would say most of the cracking and deterioration is what you would typically see in storm sewer this age. But definitely some things with some of the longitudinal cracks on the tops of the pipe that I think we would have some concerns with taking over because it would require some future maintenance. So,
Is it at the roadways? Typically?
yeah, so most of what we televised was in the roadways and then to the nearest structure outside the roadway. But structurally, everything was in pretty good shape. Some of the joints where the pipes are connected were broken away and chipping. Some had some larger separation, but nothing that was going to cause any road failure anytime soon. So I guess our staff recommendation would be to not accept these roads as public streets for all the reasons kind of listed and we've talked about here. We would ask also that if the board elected to take this to council for further consideration, that an appropriate cost for the rehab and then cost to account for maintenance and ownership for the city to take over should be discussed and considered with that council consideration.
And then sitting here listening, I probably would be prudent to add the fact that city has accepted roads in the past, just not from this situation. So typically it's the county wants to get rid of, St. Martin's or, some of those other roads. But generally when that's happened, the county brought it up to a brand new road that we took over. But then it made sense for the city to take it for other reasons. Like Tyler noted, there's no way this could be extended to provide access to something else that the city needed. So no surprise, I mentioned that we're going to recommend denial, but obviously this is for you discussion, and should you decide to forward it on to the common council, we'd appreciate some guidance on what is the appropriate amount, if you will, to make it worth our while to take it.
So my initial question, based on the conversation, I believe you said that is there an easement for the sewer that you looked at?
There's easement for the sewer, the water.
For the water and sanitary sewer. There's not an actual public easement. None of the storm sewer within the roadway is public at this time.
Okay, so the system that you sent the machine down to look at, the photograph.
Yep.
That is a private system also?
Correct. So we got permission from Mr. Arndt to send the cameras.
The reason I was asking the question was I was a little confused because you talked about an easement, and I didn't know if that was a city-owned piece of thing. And so if they were going to redo this roadway, we would have to work with them to do that at the same time. I just was wanting to know what that situation was.
Yep.
So, okay. Sir, I forget your name, I apologize.
I'm sorry, Mark Arndt.
And if you want to give your address, and then you can kind of let us, give us another conversation if you wish, a couple of minutes. And
my address is 2950 West Villa Drive in the Villas of Franklin. And as I said 2 months ago when I came, several of our owners had requested that we investigate the possibilities of turning the private roads over to the city of Franklin. And consequently, engineering department is taking a look at it, and as I understand, they will be rejecting that because there's no precedent for it. But I had to ask the question, and I didn't want to waste anybody's time. At the same time, we're accountable on our board for 90 owners.
so, in my opinion, as a member of the board, I would say that you have not wasted our time, because what you've done is you've given us the engineering department has gone out and done its work.
Right.
They've made their recommendation to this board. We're doing our due diligence to understand this, so that if this comes up again, the members of this board will understand what we're talking about and how to handle it. You know, even myself, like I said, in the 30+ years I've been on this particular situation has not ever come up before, so there's no way to really make a good decision without taking a step back and understanding what it is that we're doing.
Correct.
So, I actually appreciate, even if this board decides to use the recommendation from the city engineering staff, I think it's worthwhile for us to go through the process of what we've done.
I totally agree, and whatever documents we receive from the engineering department, I'm sure they're going to be clear as to what they looked at, why they decided what they did. And that's all we really need to put closure to this, you know.
Okay. You have the ability to put together something to send back to them?
Yeah, I think we have the videos that we can somehow get to you. Yeah.
Well, not even that, but just a formal letter from the
Okay.
city stating that this is your position and why.
Okay.
That's basically all we're really trying to achieve here.
I can write a summary letter based on your decision here today.
Okay. Members of the board, is there any questions here? No one's raising their hand. Is there, I would have to kind of agree with the staff recommendation based on what I see. To me, the real issue is, to me, the right-of-way, and the comment that Tyler made earlier that said, if this becomes a way for developers to bypass the normal right-of-way and setback requirements, then we're setting a bad precedent for the city in the future, and we don't want to do that. So for me, that's the biggest issue that I have with this whole scenario. Is there anybody wishes to make a motion one way or another? Ms. Two?
Not accept it.
Okay.
You know, send a letter,
Okay.
not the city.
So, okay, should I help you with the
Yes.
motion? Okay. How about this? The city of okay, the motion would be to reject the request for the acquisition of Patricia Court and Susanna Court per recommendation from engineering staff, and have engineering staff write a summary letter of what we have decided tonight to return to the
villas, yeah.
the villas.
I agree.
Are we good with that?
You can write.
I don't know if I could repeat it, so make sure.
And I'll second it.
Okay, I don't know if I could repeat that again, so make sure that she gets it off there if I don't get it written down well, okay? So Commissioner Witt has made that motion, seconded by Commissioner Porter. Are there any other conversations from the members? Okay, if not, then all of those in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Okay, then that will pass, and I really do mean what I said about I appreciate you bringing it forward, because it sets a precedent now for the city to say, you know, we've looked at this in the past, and we have a argument and a reason, you know, you have to meet certain standards, and we don't want developers to, I think that's the big one, we don't want developers to cut corners and then try to say, oh, you took it once.
No, I fully understand.
So I appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming back again.
Take care, good night.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the stop sign request for Golden Lake Way. You know, Glenn, when we had you send this out, I had no anticipation. I don't know what I was expecting from the from going out there to ask people. What we got back in terms of what people wanted out there was not what I was anticipating at all. I don't know what I was anticipating, but that was not it. So,
I guess for the alderman's sake, I'm going to kind of give a brief history of what's going on. This is a road that's north side of Putes between 76th and St. Martin's. It basically backs up behind the Forest Hill complexes that you see up there. So when you enter from Putes Road, it's on a road called Golden Lake Way. And when you travel north on Golden Lake Way, there are 2 stop signs at this intersection. But they are not on Golden Lake Way. They are on Golden Lake Way. But Lake Point Drive is a continuous. You do not have to stop if you're on Lake Point Drive, going east or west. So it's kind of odd when you look at it. It's like you scratch your head. Why would that be? And there's been speculation as to what happened, when it happened. The conversation was that initially this Lake Point Drive intended to continue to other developments. Is one reason we've heard. That was back in the day when you could doze it, you could build it. Nowadays, with environmental concerns and we protect a lot of our natural resources, that's almost impossible for these to turn into large subdivisions. In fact, this lot right here is being turned into a single-family home. The driveway comes up and around like something like that. So the likelihood of Lake Point Drive continuing on to bigger and better subdivisions is probably not going to happen. So the conversation at our last meeting was, let's survey the residents who would use this intersection on what their feelings are. And so what you see in your packet tonight is the results of that questionnaire. So we received, I believe it's 37 responses, plus 2 more that I just passed out tonight. They were mailed by the deadline, but we received them late. So 39 responses. So for the most part, it's a 2-to-1 preference over doing a 4-way stop over leaving as is. So the concern is that should we just swap the stop signs, or should we indeed just make this a 4-way stop? There's a lot of concern we have of adding any stop signs, and you'll learn you're on the board. It's almost not quite monthly, but very, very common for us to receive requests for stop signs. We have a methodology in place of how to warrant a stop sign. You don't want to put stop signs where they're not warranted. As an example, stop signs are not a means to slow traffic down. Otherwise, people don't stop, and it actually makes the conditions worse. So that's odd for the public at large to hear that, but that's we're making sound decisions that way. Having said that, there is even more concern to take down a stop sign once it's there, because people would expect it there and it's already there. Then that tends to be when the T-bone accidents happen and people really get injured. So the decision was, it does make sense for Golden Lake to be the through street and Lake Point to be stopping, but the question is, should we leave it a 2-way stop for Lake Point, or should we make it a 4-way stop for Lake Point and Golden Lake? My suggestion is, I think it'd be much safer condition just to make it a 4-way stop, and as evidenced by the responses from the residents, that I think more than a 2-to-1 margin, people are in favor of changing something. But even the ones, if you read the responses, leave as is, they were okay with adding stop signs for the other direction. So that's my recommendation, is that we make it a 4-way stop.
To me, it makes it just for my reference again. So I'm not going to speak out of way here. Those 2 stop signs that are currently there are on which road? Lake Point or on Golden Lake?
They're on Golden Lake.
They're
Golden Lake
Golden
has
Lake.
to stop. Yes.
Golden Lake has the stop signs, and Lake Point Drive has the through traffic. The current situation makes no sense.
I think the current situation is dangerous.
I think the current situation makes no sense. As you know, I deathly dislike 4-way stops where they're not supposed to be. This is a special situation, though. I kind of think we're kind of back in a neighborhood in which the only people that are really driving in this area are the people who live here. There's no through traffic. So I guess from my point of view, I would either leave it as is or make it a four-way stop. But I don't have a preference either way.
And I should maybe further elaborate why I feel like leaving it as is not safe conditions. So imagine if I don't live there, but I'm going to visit someone, I'm an Uber driver or something, driving up Golden Lake Way, I stop at a stop sign.
Mhm.
I see someone coming into the intersection from Lake Point Drive. It seems logical to me that they should have to stop. So I'm going to proceed in the intersection, and they're not stopping. That's the issue that I think is the concern. So the question is, if that's unsafe, how do you fix it? Again, if you take stop sign down, that has its own special sets of concerns. I think a four-way stop is the least bad situation.
Yeah, I just think I think that a bad situation was created, and we're putting a Band-Aid on an arterial bleed, if that makes sense. Ms. Specht.
To Glenn's point, if you're looking at this intersection and the length, which we just, of Golden Lake Golden Lake Way, this is very similar to what we just dealt with in my neighborhood, where there was a lot of concern over the speed going down that road, over having such a long run without a controlled intersection.
Right.
And if you read some of the comments that are here, there is a high number of children involved in this neighborhood who often play together. I do believe that the recommendation from engineering to put in the four-way stop is probably the best approach, because then you'll also be have some type of controlled intersection on that long run and not opening that up to a new issue that we may be back here again with a new set of residents, because that was definitely not something that, based on the survey, they supported, while still fixing what was a poor decision at the time, but it was based on what they knew at the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's based on what we knew at the time, and things didn't develop as anticipated, so this is where we're at. Is there another comment on the board before I ask? Are you willing to put a motion that way?
I'd be willing to make a motion to direct engineering to install
Department of
Public Works.
Wait a second. This has to go to council to be included.
So if you would like to do a four-way stop, the correct motion would be to recommend to Common Council to install stop signs on Golden Lake Way at the intersection of Lake Point Drive.
As Glenn stated, I will make that motion.
No, on Lake Point.
On Lake Point
I'm
Drive.
sorry, you're right. On Lake Point Drive at the intersection of Golden Lake Way.
Yeah, so on Lake Point. So I do have a question. And this is, I ask these questions because, So this is what kind of confuses me sometimes. We have stop signs on Golden Lake Way, correct?
No, we have them on Lake Point.
This is what I'm trying to understand.
You do have stop signs on
They're
Golden
at
Lake
Golden
Way.
Lake, okay.
We do not have stop signs on Lake Point Drive.
Correct.
Okay.
So you would be
So here's
adding stop signs at Lake Point.
Here's my question. If you look at the item, the way it's listed in our packet for item 4A, it says stop sign request for South Golden Lake Way. Is that can we do this underneath that particular item? Does that, do we fit the,
Yeah,
you know what I'm asking?
Well, the title says consideration of stop signs at West Lake Point Drive and South Golden Lake Way.
Well, on our
agenda.
on our agenda. I don't mean to be a stickler, but on our agenda, it doesn't say that. Does this create a problem for us?
If it's going to common council, wouldn't it be addressed?
I would like to suggest that title's regarding this intersection, it's been discussed at length here.
It has, and I'm just
So-
noticing it. I don't,
So
I'm not trying to be a stickler. I'm just
So I
trying
would,
to make sure.
so I would suggest that, let me ask the city attorney. If he's concerned about it, I'll bring it back next month. If not, I'll take it to the common council.
Okay, I'm good with that. I just wanted to bring up the question because what I don't want to have happen is to create a problem for the city, and we got 3 new aldermen and a new mayor, and I don't want to create an issue.
I think we're okay because you're just a recommending board.
Okay, so the recommendation is to put stop signs, or the motion is to recommend to common council to put stop signs on Lake Point Drive at Golden Lake Way in both directions. Is that motion has been made by Commissioner Specht. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Porter has seconded that motion. Are there any other comments or questions? No other comments, then all of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, that will pass. Then we'll move on to item 5A, which is the authorization of sales of DPW vehicles and equipment. There's Kevin, you got this one? Yep. There's a memorandum from Kevin on this dated March the 4th that has 8 vehicles or 8 items listed. I'll call them items because some of them are, quote, multiple or odd miscellaneous parts or whatever, so I'll call them 8 items that you're asking to go on to the Auction Associates website or for auction.
For auction, yes.
Do we, I forget, and I know these come up here every year. Do we, in this scenario, we put it up there and it goes for what it goes for? Do we put a minimum bid on these things or they just go?
We haven't been putting minimum bid on
Okay.
it because we've
We've been doing very
successful.
well, if
Yeah,
I
we've been
recall
doing very
correctly.
well.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So, anything, the reason I was bringing this up in this way was I wanted to mention that not all the vehicles listed here are DPW vehicles, but these things come through this board to get the approval to go on to onto the website. And what normally happens is we approve to put it on the website, and then we get through the bids, and then it goes to the city council to approve, or how's that work?
It goes to you. You give us permission to send it to auction. It goes right to auction. We don't need to go to council for that. And then when it comes back, we just do an informational to the council, advising them what the total sale price was.
Okay, I'm doing this,
That's it.
I'm going through these questions for Alderman Hassan,
Yep.
since he's the first time he's here, so I wanted to make sure you understood
Yes.
the process of what we're doing.
Yes.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay?
This board gives us the
Yeah,
approval to
and
go to auction.
this board had been given that approval from previous councils to do this in this fashion. And and we'll continue to act that way until a council comes up and says, no, you can't do this anymore. We're going to act on the action as done, okay? Anything special about any of these?
No, the Ford Explorer is an old squad car. We normally get an old one every now and then where they're handing them in. We use them for a while. This one's being handed in. It's more than seen its useful life. They have another one coming up, so we're going to grab that one for a few years. What's it? No, this is one we had. The aerial bucket truck, we replaced that last fall with a new one. We just kept this one for a little while until we had everybody trained on the new one. The air compressor, unfortunately, we're gonna get rid of that. I did not replace it, it's no good to us anymore. The same with the solar board, the aero board, we can't use it anymore, it's beyond any kind of repairs, so we're just gonna let it go. And then it's strictly miscellaneous things after that. We have 2 old John Deere snow blowers. Basically, we parted them out a long time ago, so they're just parts left. But everything else is just miscellaneous parts. As again, in the previous years, we're just trying to clean house down there. And big time, I should say, clean house down there.
Yes. So, first, is there any other questions from any other member of the board? Then I would look for a motion to authorize DPW to place the items listed in the May 4th memo from Superintendent Schlater for sale on the Auction Associates website to take place on June the 10th of 2023.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Alderman, okay. That motion made by Commissioner Speck, seconded by Alderman Hassan, and I am pronouncing that correctly?
100%.
Slap me if I don't, I'm fine with
No,
that.
you're good. Thank you.
All of those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any negatives? Not hearing any negatives, that motion will pass.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin, for coming on up. And then we're moving on to future agenda items. What do we got? I assume we got roads coming up here soon.
Well, we do have a road program, but I don't think they need to come to
August,
to
maybe?
you. So we are working on roads for next year. We don't have a finance director, but I assume we're going to start putting a budget together probably next month. And so we'll be talking about roads that we'd like to look at next year.
Yeah, August probably. I would
Probably
guess.
August?
Yeah, when we bring that preliminary list, yeah.
Okay. We getting into summer, we don't normally have as much stuff, just for Alderman's reference. And if we do end up with a month where we don't have items, we don't have a meeting.
That's good. I'm taking vacation, so.
And I'm not aware of any new stop sign request.
I would highly suggest that you take a minute to stop down with Glenn at some point and ask for the warrants that this board has put together for stop sign requests.
Okay.
And that would be helpful for your reference in the future to, learn about what, this was something that was created in 1999 on this board, because we had issues with how do you put up stop signs. And so we created a set of warrants. And the big thing that we want to recognize is that stop signs are to control traffic at an intersection. They're not made to stop or slow down traffic. Anybody who starts off the conversation that we want to slow down traffic, in my mind, is losing the argument to me. But I understand that because that's an emotional argument. But we try to stay a little bit more technical on these issues. Okay?
Yeah.
Our next meeting would be June the 13th at 6 p.m. And then it is 6:40. Alderman, would you like to make the motion to adjourn the first meeting?
I sure will.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Witt, all of those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.